Okay, so here we are, human body and homeostasis. That's me, Jennifer Rosenberg. And the body is made up of 10 systems, and they're all listed there. You're probably familiar with some of them: the digestive system, circulatory system, the blood and the veins, respiratory, skeletal, muscular, nervous, the excretory system, the immune system, which was a real mystery to me until I put this report together. I learned a lot about that. The endocrine and the reproductive. Now we're going to talk about anatomy, which is the parts of each system, and then physiology, how they actually work. After we cover the body systems, we're going to talk about homeostasis, which is a fancy word for how the body keeps itself in balance in order to survive and thrive. Okay, the cell is the smallest living unit in humans, and it's everywhere in your body. And if you were to have a biopsy, the doctor would take a sample of your cells to study for disease. Metabolism, those are life-sustaining chemical reactions that are involved in growth, reproduction, how your body responds to the environment, maintains structure, and you've heard about it in terms of digestion. An enzyme is a chemical made by the body which causes a specific reaction, and there are lots of digestive enzymes. Hormone is a regulatory substance, like insulin, for example. Our first system, the digestive system, and there are two parts to it: the gastrointestinal tract, which is abbreviated as GI, which is where the food actually passes through, and the accessory organs. The accessory organs help in digestion, but the food doesn't go through them. They contribute to the process, though. I'm going to show you a picture of the GI tract after this. And here are the organs that are involved: the mouth, the pharynx, which is the throat, the esophagus. When I was a kid, we called it the food tube, the stomach, the small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and anus. And the accessory organs: teeth, tongue, salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. So you can see here the path of the food. It starts in the mouth, and then it goes down the throat and down the esophagus. And the esophagus has muscles that work with peristalsis. It's unconscious. You don't have to make them work, but it's a rhythmic motion that takes the food from the mouth down to the stomach. As you can see, that picture of the stomach's like it's a hollow organ, and it's a muscle. It's sort of like a balloon, and it holds the food there. And I'm going to go to the next slide to talk about what happens. Okay, so ingestion, the mouth takes in the food, the teeth and the tongue break the food into smaller pieces. The salivary glands produce the enzyme called amylase, which breaks down starch in the food. Then the chewed food is swallowed by the throat and ends up and goes down into the esophagus. Peristalsis is that rhythmic motion of the smooth muscle, and it's involuntary, it's unconscious. Once you swallow, the esophagus does its thing. Okay, the stomach. It stores partially digested food. It churns the food to enhance digestion. It makes and secretes hydrochloric acid. The abbreviation is HCl. And in order to protect the stomach lining, the stomach makes mucus in the goblet cells, and it makes digestive enzymes. Okay, after the stomach, The next stop is the small intestine. And you've got this watery soup of nutrients that goes from the stomach to the small intestine. And we have enzymes that enter from the pancreas. Lipase breaks down the fat. Amylase breaks down carbs into simple sugars. And protease breaks down protein. The gallbladder helps to digest fat. It secretes bile, adds bile to the soup. And then the nutrients in the soup are going to enter the bloodstream. There are villi, which are tiny finger-like projections that are in the small intestine that contain lots of capillaries, and they absorb nutrients into the bloodstream. The small intestine winds all around in your abdomen, and its average length is about 20 feet. So there's a lot of area for all this absorption to happen. Capillaries are tiny blood vessels that are throughout your body, but in this case, we're talking about in the small intestine, and they're going to take the nutrients from the small intestine to the liver. Okay, the liver is the body's largest solid organ. It weighs about 3 pounds in an adult. It's the size of a football, and it's over, if you put your hand on right below your rib cage on the right side, your liver is kind of tucked under your rib cage, below your lungs. The liver removes some sugars from the bloodstream and stores sugar for future energy use. It stores some vitamins. It makes bile, which is stored in the gallbladder. And the excess bile goes into the large intestine and then is excreted in your feces. The liver also filters out toxins and alcohol. So it's got a digestive purpose, and it's also got a purpose as a filter. It converts ammonia to urea, which is excreted in the urine, and we'll talk about that in the excretory system later on. Okay, so back in the gastrointestinal tract, now that we talked about the liver, so that soup went through the small intestine. What's left of it, of the soup, the indigestible food, moves from the small intestine to the large intestine, and its main job is to absorb water into the bloodstream. And waste, also called feces, passes through the rectum and is excreted from the anus. One of the fun facts about that is the feces is brown due to excess bile. Okay, the circulatory system. The heart and the lungs, the blood vessels are the important parts of the circulatory system. The heart is a special kind of muscle. It's a hollow organ, and the most important thing to remember about the heart is that it pumps blood continuously in one direction. There are valves in the heart, and some blood vessels have valves, and that keeps the blood from flowing backwards. I'm going to show you in this drawing, the arteries are red, but they're not red in real life. And they move oxygen and nutrients through the circulatory system to the cells. So here we go. What I mostly want you to notice about this is the directional arrows. So the blood goes from the heart, which is in the middle of the picture, up to the lungs, back to the heart after it picks up oxygen, and then it goes out of the heart and out to the body. And you see the body at the bottom. So the arteries are bringing the blood to the cells, and then the veins are taking the blood away from the cells, and the rich oxygenated blood that came to the body cells, now the veins are returning the blood, which is has carbon dioxide. It's returning it to the heart, and then the blood is going back to the lungs, and the carbon dioxide is being breathed out. So that's when you're talking about the circulatory system, it's tied in closely with the respiratory system. The lungs and the heart work together. Okay, here's another kind of fun picture of the circulatory system with skin on and no skin. Now, the red represents arteries, the blue represents veins, but that isn't, if you're looking at blood in both of those, it's not going to be blue in the veins and red in the arteries. And as you see, there are only veins on the left side, on the right side of the body, and arteries on the right, and that's not true. That was just because it would be too cluttered to put all the veins and arteries that occur in your leg and in your arm all in the picture on top of each other. And arteries, let me go to this slide so I can remember. Okay, so arteries lead to arterioles, which are small arteries, and then to capillaries. Now, you can't really see arteries, except sometimes you can see a pulse in the neck, and you can feel your pulse where you can, in the neck and in your wrist and in your groin. Veins, some veins are really visible and some are very deep. The veins also, the blood flows from the smallest, which is the capillaries, then to the venules, which are tiny veins, and then to regular veins. Okay, so in the circulatory system, it's carrying blood. What substances do we have in the blood? Red blood cells, RBCs. They carry oxygen in the hemoglobin molecule, which contains iron. And they also, so they carry oxygen out to the cells. They transport carbon dioxide back to the lungs. Red blood cells are made in the bone marrow. White blood cells, another name is leukocytes. Their big job is to fight infection, and there's several different types of white blood cells, and they're made in several places: the bone marrow, lymph nodes, and the spleen. Now, the liquid part of the blood is the plasma. It's mostly water. It also contains hormones and lymph. And the platelets are disc-shaped, and they're responsible for clotting your blood as needed. Okay, the respiratory system. And again, this works in concert with the circulatory system. You take in air through your nose, and the nose filters out filters out dirt and foreign particles. And you could tell if you're working in a dusty environment, and then you blow your nose, you can see on the tissue that the nose has been doing its job. So the air passes from the nose and the mouth into the throat, the pharynx, and then down the trachea. And then the trachea splits into the right and the left bronchus. And then it branches out into what look like actual tree branches, and those are bronchioles. And then it becomes then the alveoli are the tiny part of the lung where the air exchange happens. So you can't see the alveoli in this picture, but here's what they look like under a microscope. They're like bunches of grapes, and they're covered with this mesh that's capillaries. So you've got capillaries bringing the blood to the lungs and taking the blood away. Okay. I covered all this already. There's a word, diffusion. The oxygen diffuses from the alveoli into the alveolar capillaries, and then the red blood cells carry the oxygen to the capillaries out to the body. And then in the reverse, the carbon dioxide goes from the body back to the capillaries that surround the alveoli, and the red blood cells carry then you breathe out the carbon dioxide. And if you're interested, you can Google healthy lungs, healthy alveoli, and then not healthy alveoli. The healthy ones are nice and plump and flexible. The ones that are diseased, or if people have like emphysema, they're just kind of stiff and they don't work as well. Okay, we're moving on to the skeletal system. I'm going to spend a minute looking at this diagram. Our bones from head to toe. The skull, I want you to look at the skull and the rib cage and think about what the function of those might be, why we need those bones. And it is to protect the soft tissues, the brain and the lungs. So that's one function of the skeletal system. Another function is to give you structure to enable you to stand up and to work with the muscles to produce movement. The largest bone in your body is the femur, the thigh bone. Okay, so bones contain bone marrow. That's where red blood cells are produced. Bones store calcium, which makes bones strong. Calcium is also needed for some functions of the muscles, nerves, and heart. The skeletal system. We have muscles covering our whole body from head to toe. The muscular system, these are the muscles we are most familiar with, the skeletal muscles that are attached to bones and that move our arms and legs and our face. There are three kinds of muscles. I only showed you a picture of the skeletal. The skeletal muscle is voluntary. You control it. You tell your body to move. And the skeletal muscle is also has tendons and ligaments that help move your body. Tendons connect muscle to bone. Your biceps tendon, so the muscle right here that when you're making a muscle, that is connected from the biceps muscle itself is connected by a tendon to the shoulder and the elbow. And when you tighten that muscle, it allows you to bend your forearm and twist it, turn it over. Ligaments connect bone to bone, and the way I remember that is the ACL is an injury of the knee that football players and basketball players are prone to. It's the anterior cruciate ligament. It keeps the knee from popping out to the side. It connects bones in the knee. So that's the skeletal muscle, voluntary. Smooth muscle is involuntary, which is unconscious. It's controlled by the autonomic nervous system. It's found in hollow organs of the body, like the bronchi in the lungs, the stomach, the intestines, the uterus, the bladder, and the blood vessels. So that's all going on without any conscious control. The cardiac muscle is also an involuntary muscle. It's a specialized muscle only found in the heart. Okay, what controls all this movement and controls all the functions of the body, of all the systems? It's the nervous system. The central nervous system, which is shown here in red, is a rough picture of the brain and spinal cord. And that controls the peripheral nervous system, which is the nerves that are everywhere else in the body. The little blue lines. Central nervous system works with the peripheral nervous system. It's a communication network between the brain and the body. All the senses, like your sight, hearing, smell, send signals from the environment to the brain to be interpreted. And then a message is sent from the brain through the nerves to glands and muscles. For example, you smell food and your salivary glands secrete saliva. You start to salivate. And glands also respond by secreting hormones. Now, muscles respond to signals with movement. For example, you touch a hot stove, your nerve sends a signal to the brain, and the brain sends a signal through the nerves to your muscles to pull your hand away. Now, that happens way faster than me explaining it. The peripheral nervous system is the network of nerves throughout the body that connect your head, your face, your eyes, nose, muscles, ears to your brain. They're made up of sensory nerves and motor nerves. The sensory nerves go from your, you can picture like the tips of your fingers, they go back to the brain. The motor nerves go from the brain to your fingers and to all these other parts of the body. Another example, and these are conscious responses. The sensory nerves send information to the brain. You trip on a sidewalk, you work to catch your balance. Unconscious responses that are happening as a result of the nervous system: heart rate, breathing, digestion. Some of these responses can come under conscious control. Breathing is automatic. We pretty much haven't thought about it while I've been giving this presentation, but you can consciously take deeper, slower breaths, like if you're doing a yoga practice. Okay, the excretory system. Here we see the kidneys, the right and left kidney, the ureters, which are the tubes that run from the kidneys to the bladder, and the bladder at the bottom there. And the urethra is the tube that runs from the bladder out to the toilet. Okay. The kidneys' function is to filter metabolic waste from the blood and to form urine. Urine's made up of urea, uric acid, and creatinine, minerals, salts, and it's 95% water. The bladder stores the urine until it passes out of the body. Interestingly, the tube that goes from the bladder to the external out the body is called the urethra, and the urethra is shorter in women, and women get more bladder infections partially because of that. Okay, besides the excretory system, the urinary system, the excretory system also has some involvement by the gastrointestinal system. It's got an excretory function. It passes feces out the rectum and anus. The skin has an excretory function. The skin excretes sweat and salt, and the lungs excrete carbon dioxide. Okay, the immune system is responsible for fighting infection, and tonsils, the lymph nodes, the bone marrow, thymus, and spleen are big players in it. I'm going to show you a picture of the lymphatic system. This is something that we don't really think about, but our cells, water leaks out of the capillaries and doesn't make it it doesn't all make it into the cells. Sorry, blood leaks out of the capillaries. And so there's some liquid. And if we didn't have the lymphatic system, which works in one direction, bringing the excess fluid back up to the in the direction of the heart, we would be bloated all the time. So again, the immune system defends against infection, bacteria, viruses, and foreign bodies. The lymphatic system flows in one direction only, toward the heart, empties into the bloodstream. Lymph is a fluid that leaks out of the capillaries and is picked up by the lymphatic system. It also carries bacteria back to the lymph nodes to filter it and destroy the bacteria. Now, lymph nodes, you can feel your lymph nodes when you're sick. You can feel your tonsils, and that's because the lymph node's battling the bacteria or virus. The lymph nodes detect bacteria, and they start making white blood cells called lymphocytes to fight and kill bacteria. There's an organ of the immune system called the thymus, and it only produces these cells through the teen years. It makes T cells. T cells fight viruses, kill viruses. Okay, so there's two kinds of lymphocytes. There's the B cells that make antibodies that attach to antigens. Antigens are, just think of them as the bad guys of bacteria, toxins, and foreign cells. So the B cells attack them and destroy them, attach to them and destroy them. The T cells attack foreign bodies directly, and their job is to kill viruses specifically. Okay, the endocrine system. And there's some crossover with the immune system and the endocrine system. The endocrine system is made up of glands which produce hormones. And men and women have most of the same, except for the reproductive glands. And you can see the ovaries in a woman and the testicles in a man. That's the difference here. The hormones are sent out as messengers. There are two glands that are called the master glands, and they're located in the brain, the hypothalamus and the pituitary, and they tell all the other endocrine glands what to do. Hormones go directly from the endocrine glands into the bloodstream. Pancreas secretes insulin. It regulates blood sugar. Adrenal glands are important to regulate blood pressure. They're located right above the kidneys. Another word for kidney function is renal function. So adrenal, you can remember, above the kidney. They regulate blood pressure. They moderate the stress response. Adrenal sounds kind of like adrenaline. That's what the adrenal glands make, so that you can, your heart rate goes up and you're in fight or flight mode. You can respond to stress. And the adrenal glands also control water balance. The thyroid and the parathyroid, which are up in your neck, in your throat area, they secrete hormones for calcium homeostasis, so calcium balance, metabolic rate, and growth and development in children. Ovaries make estrogen, the testes make testosterone, and the thymus, we talked about that, disappears at puberty. It makes T cells. The pineal gland, which is located in the brain, it secretes melatonin and serotonin that regulate sleep patterns. And it's named for its pine cone-like shape, the pineal gland. Okay, the last system is the human reproductive system, and there are internal and external reproductive organs. And I will take you through, let's start with the female. The ovary contains the eggs, and an egg is released and it goes into this orange, the fallopian tubes, and is carried to the uterus. And if it's fertilized, it will stay there and grow and develop into a baby. And then at birth, it will pass through the vagina. The male sex organs and reproductive organs, the testicles are the site of sperm production, and they also produce testosterone. When the sperm is released from the testes, it passes up the vas deferens. The seminal vesicle adds fluid, semen, and then the semen and the sperm pass out through the urethra, which is in the penis, and then out the body, and the egg and the sperm can be united and create a zygote, which is when those two cells unite. And then the zygote makes a few more cells and becomes a blastocyte. And the blastocyte implants into the uterus and becomes an embryo. And then the embryo becomes a fetus, and then a baby, and then you give birth. Okay, the whole point of the reproductive system is to ensure the continuation of the human species. Our internal reproductive organs are called gonads, ovaries in the woman, testes in the male. The gametes are the name of the cells, the egg and the sperm. Okay, two ways for the egg to be fertilized: intercourse or in vitro fertilization, which is in a test tube. So we talked about all of this. The female organs, internal organs responsible for gestation, female internal organs that are responsible for gestation, so the development of the fetus, and for birth are the uterus and vagina. Male external organ is the penis. The female external organ is the vulva. And the reproductive system has to work closely with the endocrine system for the female cycle and development of female sex organs. Testosterone is the hormone responsible for male body characteristics: a deeper voice, beard, body hair, muscle mass, sex drive. Also for the development of sex organs and the production of sperm. Whew, that was the last of the 10 body systems. And we have one more topic to cover. As you noticed, all the body systems work together, often without our awareness. And there's a lot of crossover in what we were talking about. There is an important force that keeps all the body systems working well, and it's called homeostasis. It's stability, balance, or equilibrium within the cell or throughout the body to maintain health. It's not a steady state. The body's constantly getting feedback and adjusting itself. And this is all happening in the background. It's not a conscious process. The most important systems are the endocrine and the nervous system in maintaining homeostasis. Now, the term negative feedback loop is important. It means something is off, so the body corrects it. A stimulus causes a response that decreases a function or level of something in the body. So, for example, The stimulus is the temperature. Body's either too hot or too cold, and the response is to raise or lower the temperature level by shivering or sweating. I have a diagram here of a negative feedback loop. So the person has a normal body temperature in the middle. If we go off to the right, body temp with the red arrow on the top, body temperature increases. The body activates the cooling process, which is sweating. And when you sweat, there's evaporation, and then the body cools, body temperature decreases. You see that arrow, the blue arrow on the bottom, and then your temperature is back to normal. Okay, if the body temperature decreases, let's say you get really cold, we're looking at the top blue arrow. It says body temperature decreases. Then your body activates a heating process, which is shivering, and that actually brings the body temperature back up. So the temperature control is one function of homeostasis. There's another one, the blood sugar. When the body senses that the blood sugar is too high, it regulates itself by insulin sending a message to the cells and to the liver to store sugar. If the blood sugar is too low, there's a message sent to the liver to release sugar into the bloodstream. That keeps everything in balance. It keeps you from fainting if your sugar is too low. Okay, we did it. What did you learn today? The anatomy and the physiology. What did you learn today?
I can say that I would probably have to go over that lesson like at least 10 more times.
Absolutely, Tylisha. There's
It
a
was
lot.
definitely, yes, that is so a lot. But you know what? I was really interested, especially when you brought up the heart.
Good.
I was really like engaged, and I really want to know, but I know that with Jesus' will, I will have to go over that about at least 10 more times to execute and master or whatever.
There's so much there, and if you like to Google things, use your computer as you're learning, because you can look up things in more depth and more pictures and more ways to understand it.
Yeah, because it definitely opened me up to what I was looking for.
Good.
It definitely kind of gave me like a stepping stool for me to know what I'm going to get into, to what I'm ready to, what I'm about to step into. I had no idea it was 10 parts that make up the body and this and this and this. So it really just opened me up, and that's my dream. That's my
Yes.
dream. So I was just like, okay, this is cool.
Yes.
But I know that I would have to study real hard and be definitely dedicated, not only with the help of Jesus. I know Jesus, all things is possible with Christ.
Yes.
But I also know that he wants me not only to always think that he's going to be there on time, but he also wants me to be wise and know the things.
Absolutely.
So that I can be able to pass knowledge down to other people. Because God can perform the impossible. So me coming in this field with my faith, knowing that God is going to let me win, he also, not only is he going to make me win, but he also wants me to be wise and to take my time and to learn the things. Because, being a Christian, a faith walker, God just going to do everything. But no, God wants us to be wise, and he wants us to know things. So when I saw that, I was just like, okay, this really just opened me up to different things, and it really helped me realize what God is talking about. Because it's so many things to know about the body when you're going into the medical field and you want to be a doctor. Like it's like a billion different things. So studying will probably be like my number one thing, and that was so amazing. I loved it.
Good. Yes, it is. It is amazing, and there's so much to know, and it's fascinating. So I'm glad you listened to this, and by all means, you can play it again.
That's definitely what I'm gonna
And
do.
there's
I'm definitely gonna.
yeah. And I was going to show you what I used to put this together. Chris gave me this chapter. It's called Life Science, and it's in the GED pages 349 to 359. Basically, I just took notes and presented them to you. So it would be
Wow.
another way to review it if you want.